All right, so you clicked on the video for a reason. Let's fix the trigger on this gun. It comes factory with an 80 series trigger, and we want to make it pull like a staccato or a staccato with a 70 series trigger, because the P4 does have that 80 series that they did a very good job of tuning. But again, we want to make this gun a little better. It's an amazing firearm, and the only thing that it's really lacking is that creep in the trigger when you first get it. It kind of sucks. This one has already been removed. As you can see, it's pretty much just wall and then brake. That's it. We're just going to remove this little guy in here and then the connecting parts from the trigger. I am halfway through the video and I forgot to mention something. This is going to be part of your 80 series trigger, these two parts, along with what is in your slide. This is what actually pushes up on the firing pin safety. So we want to get rid of these two, and we do need to replace them with something, or the internals of your gun are going to be super sloppy back and forth. It's going to sound really crappy. If you're like me, you don't like that. It'll still work if you take these out and leave them out, but again, would not recommend that at all. Go to Wilson Combat, get yourself an 80s to 70 series conversion shim. They make these, they're awesome, and they're adjustable. That's why they put those 3 little dimples on there, is so you can get the correct fit without having to do any dremeling or sanding or any type of machining. They took all the guesswork out, make it a lot easier. So first, we're going to be removing the slide. I'm not going to go into depth on the field strip just because it is relatively straightforward if you've ever had 1911. We're going to line it up with that little spot right there in the slide. And then we're going to use the punch provided with Sig, or if you have your own punch, probably better because this thing is really crappy. What I like to do is hold my optic with my left hand. It's easier to do with an optic. And then I'm going to punch that through while moving the slide back and forth, kind of like this, so that you're able to get that pin out. Now it is out on this side. Remove it all the way. Pop the slide off. That spring normally will spring it at you, but I got lucky this time. So, yep, there it goes. I got lucky this time somewhat. Now, with this other side, if you're curious, this thing just rotates up and pops out. Okay, so I set all that stuff aside for now. The top of the slide. Now we're going to slide this little plug out, rotate this guy down, and pop our barrel out. When it comes to this, mine is already removed. I struggled super hard figuring out how to do this because I had never worked on Sig, I guess a hammerfire Sig before, but it's identical to your 226. So all you're going to do is you're going to take a punch, you're going to hit that little pin all the way through, and then your disconnector is going to fall out. Now, be careful because your disconnector falling out, also it retains your firing pin in there as well. So that can spring out as well. So I don't care about any of these parts, so I'm just gonna drop them because I'm never putting them back in there. Unfortunately, I don't have a close for this hole. So if you don't want a hole sitting in your gun and you're worried about brass and stuff getting it down in there, even though the gun sits like this, by all means, don't do this, or try and find a solution for that. I haven't found one yet. Brand new pistol. Maybe someone will come out with one, or I haven't seen one for a Sig 80 series trigger quite yet. So this is a little tidbit from me. If you don't have a punch or a punch set, you can always go to the hardware shop and get one. Now, funny enough, for this little pin that you're gonna push through, all you need to do is open up your Sig box and look right here. Your actual hinge piece is the exact size punch that you need. Okay, so from here, all you're gonna do is put it on this side and you're gonna hammer it all the way through. Now your pin's gonna be sticking out. I don't like to take the pin all the way out. I would just like to be able to see that the pin has gone past your firing pin, AKA it's on this side of the firearm. So you're gonna just take it, you're gonna hammer this all the way through, just with your little hinge piece, or if you have a professional punch, I'd recommend you use that. But again, this thing works just fine. As you can see, fits right into that hole, no problems. Once you have hammered this thing all the way through, your pin will be sitting in here like this, and you can remove it. Again, it's gonna be coming from this side. You can slide it all the way in, and then your pin will be sticking out. You can remove your tool, and that is going to release everything. So your disconnector is going to pop out along with your firing pin. If it doesn't do it immediately, you can put a little bit of pressure right here. That will release the disconnector and again, release the firing pin. So once that disconnector has fallen out of your gun, you can now do the same process in reverse. You can go ahead and hit this pin all the way back through with the firing pin flush. Again, this guy can go even, you can either go deeper into the gun or you can go and just have it flush. Once you get that all the way through, your firing pin will be retained. It will stay in there and you're good to go for the upper of the slide. You can reassemble this guy, never touch it again. Now, after working on staccatos, Atlas, different stuff like that, I gotta say, I really like what Sig did with this gun. This little lower unit is absolutely genius in how they did this. And I'll show you what I mean right here. So your standard 1911 is gonna have a pin all the way through the magazine well, if it has one. If it doesn't, then you'll just have a pin sitting through the grip. Sig decided to put a little screw on the bottom here, which is genius. I believe this is a T15. So we're gonna go ahead and do that. This guy right here, we're gonna go ahead and loosen that up. Cool thing as well, you don't have to take the screw all the way out because it has a little eyelet where it sits in there. Now I'll go ahead and just remove that screw all the way out now that it's off. Alrighty, so now we are going to go ahead and take our, what is this, a T25 and take off these grip panels. So just simply pop it off like that, unscrew, and that will pop out. Put that over there. Same thing on the other side. That comes off. And right here, we see, just like our standard staccatos or Prodigy, whatever, we have a pin in here that we're gonna remove. So it goes all the way through, and that is what's holding your mainspring housing in place. Keep in mind, there is a lot of spring tension behind here. So what I'm gonna do is go ahead and drop the hammer just to loosen up that spring tension because the hammer strut is pushing down on the mainspring housing. So now that you have that hammer up, again, make sure that is up. We're gonna press this out. It is very easy on my gun. Sig's tolerances, losing pins over here. Sig's tolerances are crazy because it's not a handmade gun, so maybe that's it. Maybe it's just because the blower is metal. We're going to now pull our mainspring down. And again, you can see that hammer strut I was talking about. And that's a little spring in there, which pushes up on your hammer strut. Now I'm gonna remove my safeties. So all we're gonna do, I like to put it at kind of like a halfway point and wiggle back and forth and pull. Most pistols are going to be left side dominant when you take it off. At least that's how I do it. So I'm just gonna sit here, kind of wiggle back and forth while pulling, and then it's gonna start to separate. I'll see it right here. Do not stick a pry tool down in there if you can't get it apart. Wiggle and pull. If you have to resort to a pry tool, you're probably doing something wrong. Okay, so now that I've got it most of the way out, it's ready to come out. You can see the difference on here and how this one is free floating versus that guy. The spring does fly out from there, so you want to be careful. If you can see that little hole right there, that's where that guy sits, all the way down there. So it will fly out once you start to get that safety out. We're gonna wiggle a little bit more, pull this out, and we're gonna pull our back safety off as well. This guy is gonna be a bit of a pain. Oh, never mind. There goes our beaver tail safety. Set all of this stuff aside, organize it if you need to. Now we have 2 pins down here. These 2 pins are very easy to pop out. They should not have any pressure at all. So you can just take your punch, push them a little bit out the backside. All of your stuff is going to fall out of your gun. Alrighty, let's second pin out. Got the first pin out already. That is our hammer and strut, our sear spring, and we're gonna have a couple more parts, which will be our disconnector and our sear. And then this is part of your 80 series trigger. There should be one more piece in here. Alrighty, so now that you've taken those 2 pins out, we have a couple of parts that came out of the gun. That's gonna be the disconnector, the sear, hammer strut, and then part of our 80 series mechanism. This is gonna kind of sit something like this in the gun. This is what pushes up on top of the slide to actuate that pin we took out of the slide. So now it should be hollow with the exception of our trigger. And we can go ahead and start putting this thing back together. Okay, so now we're gonna start throwing this all back together. Couple things to note, just make sure that you put these pins going in, oh goodness, dropped up. Pins going in this direction, big pin and the small pin. Make it a lot easier. Okay, now putting things together. Before you do that, make sure that this guy is fitted properly. You need to just kind of mess with it. Make sure that these are kind of pushed in a little bit so that it's the exact same thickness as the parts that we're taking out, because we don't want it to be loose. We also don't want it to be too tight. So you can take calipers, measure each little dot, make sure it's the same thickness as this, or you can do it, whatever works for you. Now, when you're putting this guy back in, there is a small hole and a big hole, just like our pins that we have down here. So this guy is going to sit kind of inside of your frame, something like that, right? We got our small hole and our big hole. There's a little channel in there that it's going to sit in. There's really no super easy way to do this, because it's not like you can put your hands on there and kind of move it in there. It's in there, and then you just got to try and find the pin and get it through. So I'm going to go ahead and put this in there. I'm going to put the big pin in first. We're going to go ahead and put it in our disconnector and our sear. Disconnector, you can put your finger on the top and kind of put it right here, because the disconnector will fall forwards and go underneath the trigger, and you don't want that. You can see my shim's kind of flying around. Let's make sure that sits in its spot, nice and flush. Go ahead and use that hole, and we're going to put our disconnector in that hole, again holding the top so that it doesn't fall too far. Go ahead and drop our sear in. It's going to sit just like that inside of the gun. So pop that guy down there. Again, there's not a lot of easy ways to do this. You're gonna mess it up, and that's the best thing about it. Alrighty, so what I like to do now is go ahead and put my thumb down inside the frame so I can push up that sear and disconnector that we just put in and line it up with the hole. It's gonna be a pain for me to show you. I'm guessing you can kind of see what I'm doing. Go ahead and push that through. It's not going all the way through, so I know it's not all the way through the disconnector. So again, I'm gonna push that up with my finger just a bit, move it around, kind of find out where that hole might be. And then once I do that, I'll pop it through. All pin in, so now my disconnector and sear are in there. Now I'm gonna go ahead and take this top pin out. Make sure your gun is level when you do this, so everything lines up. The reason why I put that big pin in there first is so that the shim will stay lined up. I'm gonna go ahead and slide the hammer into place and put that big pin back through. The little beveled edge is gonna go in first. And again, kind of mess around with it until you find your spot. There it goes. Now, the way I like to do this to make it easier is I like to put my sear spring in now. So this part, you can tune it if you want to, mess around with your trigger. I recommend watching a whole video just on how to tune one of these, because I don't feel like explaining it. So, ooh, nice click. You want to make sure you have a positive click. If you don't, you did something wrong, or you might have bent this on accident. That click is your sear engaging your hammer, and that is a very good thing. What you're doing when you're putting this spring in is you want to make sure that you have your very left fork on your sear. Your center fork is going to go on your disconnector, which is touching the back of the trigger. And this guy doesn't really matter because that's your beaver tail safety spring. So pop that guy down into place. There's a little groove down here on the bottom, which it pops into. So super straightforwards. Lay that down on there, and then we're gonna slide our mainspring housing on. Again, with that little piece facing up, I don't believe you can put it in backwards. Beautiful. So if you notice with the mainspring housing, I'm not gonna slide it all the way into place yet. I'm gonna leave a little bit of a gap down here at the bottom, because when I put my safety in, I need to push that up and it retains it, because that has to go first and this slides all the way in second. But we do need it to retain our spring for now. So I'm gonna put my right side safety on first. This one has a little bit of a groove in it. Goodness, this one has a little bit of a groove in it. So I'm going to place it on here and then rotate it onto that pin. So if you see the pin is sticking out, and I'm going to place that right here and rotate it into place. Okay, now that we have our right side safety on, we're gonna go ahead and put this spring in. The shorter side of the spring is gonna go towards the front of the gun. And pop that in. And I'm gonna go ahead and put my beaver tail safety on. Now I'm going to use the safety, which retains that beaver tail. And this is not gonna pop all the way down, because again, I do have to move this little spring forwards in order for this to sit all the way down. So I'm not gonna use my Sig tool, I'm gonna grab something else. Alrighty, our trusty little flathead should do the trick. Pop this guy in while pushing down on that safety. Make sure the keys guys are perfectly lined up with the back and front. We're gonna wiggle that guy in place, just like so. Oh, that looks good. Okay, safeties are functional. Nice positive click. Okay, so now we're gonna go ahead and seat this hammer strut into our mainspring. So go ahead and put your hammer forwards again so we can release some of that pressure. I'm gonna go ahead and make sure that hammer strut is sitting back just so I'm able to get it into the mainspring hole. So that is in place. Put a little bit of pressure on it just to make sure it's where we need it to be. And go ahead and slide your pin back in. Since our gun is pretty much back together, we are going to function test it. You always want to function test your gun. I like to do it here because then it's easier to take apart if you did something wrong or whatever that may be. I want to make sure that the trigger cannot go off while the grip safety is not being pressed, so that's a good thing. Always make sure you keep your thumb up here. You don't want to just dry fire your gun and let it slam into the top. You can break your hammer. So now we'll check it with the safety. Looks like it's working great. Again, nice positive click. Also check our manual safeties with and without that grip safety. Seems like it's working great. Go ahead and pop that down. Bam, good to go. After doing a function test, we're gonna go ahead and put our panels back on. Keep in mind, you do have to put the panels on before the magwell. The magwell kind of sits over the top of these grip panels, kind of somewhat locking them in place. Beautiful. Alrighty, again, with that screw, we can get it started and then put the magwell on top of it. If I can get this started, come on, there it goes. Awesome, so screw it down just a little bit, and then we're gonna use that little eyelet and just kind of slide it over. Beautiful, so we got a little gap there just because the screw hasn't been screwed down. Switch to my other bit. Beautiful, that looks good. Okay, now to put the slide back on, the thing I will mention is I did put a little bit of a polish on top of the disconnector and on top of the hammer, just to allow my gun to run a bit smoother. I wouldn't recommend doing that until your firearm is broken in. Get 250 to 1,000 rounds through the gun before you polish anything, unless it's the internal parts when you're working on it, just because you don't know where those wear patterns are gonna be, and the gun will start to naturally wear in and polish those parts on its own. So just get some round down range and then try it. Before I put this slide back on though, I am gonna put a little bit of lubricant on there just because I did take some off on accident. Now I'm using Lucas and I put it on one of these little Q-tips. You can buy them at Walmart, and I'll just slide it into the small parts. I like to put too much. That's up to you. I clean my gun all the time, so it doesn't really matter to me. And I'll put a little bit down here as well because your barrel lug, it's kind of a pain. This part, I will say, you don't want to put too much oil in here because you can have some issues lining it up and getting it back together. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and put this barrel back in my slide. Oh. Boom, like so. This guy back in, and the spring part, probably gonna do this off camera because I always mess it up, but just gonna put this in here and put my spring down there. The one thing I will say, I am using the yellow spring, which is heavier. If you don't know which one it is and you forget, just remember it's the longer spring. Kind of makes sense if you think about it. Longer spring's heavier. And then yeah, fit this guy back in here. Remember, it just kind of locks into place and rotates down. Then I'm gonna take the live hand grenade and put it on slowly. Goodness, there it goes. Put it on slowly and see if I can line this guy up. Can I do it quickly like a professional? Probably not, but there it goes. Beautiful. Just make sure you don't get any noob scratches up there. Nobody likes that, and it kind of sucks. The other thing about this gun that I don't understand is that this guy is a little loose. Kind of makes me upset. I'm probably gonna try and replace that with just a single-sided. That gap is gonna look a little weird though, but it is loose. I don't understand why both sides are flush. So hopefully you finished out, gun's working properly. From here, there is one more thing that you can do for your trigger, and that is going to be adjusting your over travel screw. People never touch these on their guns, and I don't know why. It is designed to be used. Now, this little screw here inside that trigger is going to push on your magazine release for the over travel. That means is basically you have your wall, and then everything after the wall is your over travel. If you push that screw all the way down until the gun is not able to fire, and then back off a couple turns. Now that will make it so that your trigger, again, once you hit that wall, after the wall there is barely anything, and then when you go to reset your trigger, there is barely any travel back to that reset. It's awesome. Makes it feel much better, along with deleting that 80 series. Hopefully this video helps one of you guys out there to be able to go and modify your gun. This only thing I can think of to do would be some trigger work on this thing. Everything else is awesome. Magwell 320 mags, compensator. I know a bigger YouTuber will probably come along and make a much better production quality video, much more informative. I just want to come on and show y'all guys really quick so that you're able to hopefully run and go do this and make your gun shoot way better. Thanks for watching. Feel free to roast the crap out of me in the comments.